on this subject. Before we talk about management or about any aspect of management, I think we should first have a look at the kind of environment that today dogs us. You may have heard of VUCA. This is a cliche term by now. VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, essentially derived from military terminology in the US. But what this environment is doing at the individual level and at the group level is something that needs to be understood. To my mind, this is something which I picked up very lately, is a useful paradigm. So it is having what is called the Bani effect, BANI, where B stands for brittle, A for anxious, N for nonlinear, and I for incomprehensible. So what is happening in the environment today is simply nonlinear and to a large extent incomprehensible at the individual level, causing a lot of anxiousness within us and brittleness in our psychology and character. During our lifetime, we have never seen logistics cost escalate by 50 to 60%, raw material cost escalate by 25 to 30%. The world on the brink of a nuclear war or a world war, which happened just after all of us thought that we were well over the pandemic. So this is disruption on a huge scale. And it requires adjustments, not only to our individual behavior, but also to group behavior, and also to the very perceptions and concepts of management that we have learned so far. Perhaps a lot needs to be relearned. In this context, I can share with you my personal belief is that the only way I have found, having navigated this crisis for my organization along with my team, my personal level experience has been nothing works better than a cross-functional approach, which is essentially the theme of your curriculum for this program. Why do I say this? I say this because so far in the legacy world, we have believed in authoritarian structures, hierarchies, where a team reported to a leader, leader was part of another bigger team, and so on and so forth. So you required control over your team members to be able to function. I think that paradigm is gradually getting thrown out of the window. Reporting relationships and working in teams, these were perhaps true in the legacy world, but in today's world, reporting relationships and team formations or team working, they do not go in sync with each other. Essentially, what I'm trying to tell you is that we have to quickly adapt and learn the technique of being able to work without having reporting relationships, which is essentially working in cross-functional teams. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, in a situation of uncertainty, this is what works the best. Now, this requires a paradigm change in our mental space because we have not learned to work like this. Now, I always tell my colleagues in the company that future leaders will be those who will be able to effectively work in CFT situations, where people with whom he is working did not report to him. So we are essentially talking about matrix structures where you have some team members, some consultants, and some outsiders working as part of your total team. How do we do that? Because so far we have always relied on authoritative or hierarchical power structures to be able to control others. Now, what is power? Power is essentially the ability to influence others. This can, of course, come from hierarchical structures, but what is emerging and what is getting important in today's context is that the power must flow from your expertise, from your knowledge. We often rely on people who have the necessary expertise and the knowledge to be able to guide us through a certain situation. And the source of power emanates from his level of expertise, not from any authoritarian structure. It is that power which is becoming increasingly important. So therefore, in a situation where people have that expert knowledge, have that expert power, and they are part of a team and they can contribute, this is what is becoming increasingly important. As team leaders, one must be able to recognize this aspect and be able to work along with your team, which comes from very, very different and diverse kind of groups. If you are unable to do that, I am convinced that you will not be able to lead in the next decade or even this one. There are companies today who have outsourced a large part of their functions. And essentially team formations are taking place across different groups. And the leader is someone who is successfully able to navigate, successfully able to draw the best out of the team. And the team is in a way reliant on him to be able to integrate. So the power of integration is becoming very, very important for a leader. So I feel that going forward, we are going to witness very different kinds of organization structures. And as management experts, we must learn to quickly adapt to these new situations, because I believe that the pandemic is not the end, but just the beginning of a series of uncertainties which will plague us in the coming next 2 to 3 decades. And the uncertainties need not always be from pandemics or from wars. It can also be caused by major technological disruptions which may happen. And therefore, the need to act fast, act quickly, and to be able to take decisive actions is going to become very, very important in today's and tomorrow's context.